Dr. Narendra Chirmule, CEO of Symphony Tech Biologics, and also an alumni of RJ College, way back 1977 to 1982. Our very own and dear former principal and now the director of Hindi Vidya Prachar Samiti, the governing body of the college, Dr. Usha Mukundan, Madam. My dear teacher colleagues from the Department of Biotechnology, Department of Botany, and other departments of the college, and dear students. As head of the institute, it gives me immense pleasure today in inviting you all to this RJ College 4th online popular lecture series being inaugurated by a very own alumni, Dr. Chirmule, and the DBT Star College status and college scheme activity of the college, and also the inauguration of RJC Biotech official website at the hands of our chief guest and guest speaker. Well, friends, just yesterday we had our 83rd Foundation Day celebration, an education institution which has come a long way and would say has survived on the excellent faculty and above all, the dedicated and focused students who after passing out from the institute has created a niche for themselves. And Dr. Chirmule, our guest speaker today, is one of them. Sir, we feel very proud and privileged to have you today with us interacting with our present generation of students from biological sciences.
Thank you.
Sir, we are not able to hear you, Himanshu sir.
Oh, madam, you couldn't hear anything?
No, sir.
Okay. Anyways, I think now can you hear me, madam?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Am I audible, madam?
Yeah, yes, sir. Yes.
Okay. So once again, sorry for the inconvenience, but I welcome you all to this morning. Our respected guest speaker, Dr. Narendra Chirmule, sir, CEO, Symphony Tech Biologics, an alumni of RJC way back from 1977 to 1982, a very own beloved former principal and now the director of Hindi Vidya Prachar Samiti, Dr. Usha Mukundan, Madam. My teacher colleagues from the Department of Biotechnology, Department of Botany, and other departments of the college, and my dear students. It gives me immense pleasure in inviting you all to this RJ College 4th popular online lecture series, starting today with the inauguration lecture by our very own alumni, Dr. Chirmule, and the DBT Star College status and college scheme activity, and also the inauguration of RJC Biotech official website. Well, friends, just yesterday we had 83rd Foundation Day of our Samiti for an education institute which has come a very long way. Two most important supporting pillars are the excellent faculty and above all the motivated students who after passing out from this institute create a niche for themselves, and our guest speaker today is one of them. Sir, we feel very proud and privileged to welcome you back to your alma mater. Well, friends, adaptation is a key to evolution. In the pandemic period last year, when it was difficult for us to meet each other, to keep our minds academically engaged, it was Usha Madam's idea floated that we can have the lecture series every week or every fortnight so that we all come on a common platform, academically enrich ourselves and feel connected to each other. It was during last year that we had 3 lecture series, one organized by RJ College independently, one in association with ATBS, that is Association of Teachers in Biological Sciences, and one was with IAPT, that is Indian Association of Physics Teachers. And here we are today, this year, inaugurating the 4th lecture series with our own alumni. Welcome you, sir. Welcome each one of you. Before I complete my speech, Department of Biotechnology, a self-motivated, a self-financed department, has also come a long way in the process of growing. And today they are taking one more step ahead in becoming a part of a global scenario, but with a human touch, and having served to inaugurate their website is something which we all shall remember. So welcome one and all. Welcome to this lecture series. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, sir. May I now call upon Dr. Usha Mukundan, ma'am, the director of HBPS Institute, to introduce our guest speaker for today, Dr. Chirmule.
Good morning, everyone. Respected Principal Dr. Himanshu Davda, Chief Guest for today's lecture series inauguration, our very own, I would say very, very dear student, Dr. Narendra Chirmule. Welcome to Junjanwala College once again, even though we are virtually connected, but I know that each and every day we are with each other in our thoughts. My classmate, we have spent 4 decades together, Dr. Purushottam Kale, who has joined very early, and anything, if we just call Kale sir, he has an answer to it. So welcome, Captain Praveen Nayak, Vice Principal, Junjanwala College, the Head of the Department of Biotechnology, Dr. Sucheta Golwalkar, all colleagues, faculty members, and my very, very dear students. At the outset, Naren, I would like to say, Junjanwala College is very unique. Earlier, we had botany and zoology together. Now we have another young fledgling with us, the Department of Biotechnology. So all 3 departments, they complement each other. As you very rightly know, that a plant cell, animal cell, or a microbial cell, the moment you homogenize, what you have is the master molecule there. Dr. Naren has made us proud in many ways. I'm really very nostalgic because this batch, when I taught the applied component, that is environmental science. I was not very confident of teaching because my thrust area is plant sciences. But these young students, they were so enthusiastic and they were full of questions. And they were quite young. And for me, it was like being with friends. And I still remember the good time that we had during excursions or during the discussion where all our senior teachers would sit together. And I think that was a great learning process. Dr. Naren, we would like to re-emphasize that the same scenario continues. Even today, we have an open forum. Students come and discuss with us, and I think that is the way that you learn, that is the way you grow. Narendra Chirmule, as a student, was a topper, very, very intelligent, but very unassuming, and jolly good fellow. That is what I would say. As a student, full of musty, but at the same time, very studious. He topped in his undergraduate class, went on to do his master's, and at that time to go and join the Cancer Research Institute as a PhD student was a very big thing. Dr. Narendra Chirmule, I still remember, CRI was headed by Dr. Bise, and we all look at him as an icon in the field of cancer research. And when you joined that, we were all overwhelmed that our very own student is going ahead, progressing. At that time, we didn't realize that you are going to bring many feathers to our cap. You completed your PhD very successfully, and then you went abroad. Again, something very new for us. Now, almost every student is trying to go abroad, but in that era, about 20 years back, or maybe 30 years back, it was not very common. And he joined a very prestigious institute in the Cornell University, and he did his postdoctoral research in developing vaccine for leprosy. His contribution in this area is very well known. He's highly innovative, and he always works in frontier areas of research. He has occupied a very prestigious position, and when we saw his photograph in a leading magazine, we were thrilled. It was like seeing your own child achieving a great award as the head of R&D in Biocon. Naren, Dr. Mrinal was the first one to see a photograph and said, "Hey, dekh Naren ka photo aaya hai." And we all held that magazine so close to us, and as if we were very, very near you. And then there was no stopping Dr. Narendra Chirmule. He started his own company, and recently, during the pandemic, when all that RJ College group of 77, 80, early 80 batch got together, we made our own group. He shared many ideas, and he also said that I'm ready to curate a course which will be to the benefit of the students so that they have better opportunity in the wide world, whether it is research or it is in terms of job opportunity. Now, a lighter moment, Dr. Naren also pursued his hobby. And the musical note that he sends us on flute is really, really very heartwarming. Our very own teacher, Dr. Chittar Madam sends him tons of love. Shaligra Madam also sends you a lot of love and tons of blessings from my side. May you always be happy, contented, and do what you really like to do in life. And I'm very sure very soon things will normalize. And as you said, you always shuttle between Pune and US. You will definitely visit Junjanwala College to be with us, spend the entire day with our students so that the students can interact with you, learn from you how to become a successful researcher, a good learner. And that is what has translated your learning into the book, which is Good Genes Gone Bad. And today we congratulate you on being an author of this book. Good luck to you. And I'm very sure we'll have many copies in our library when it comes on shelves. And all the best. And we love you, Naren. Good luck.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you.
Rachana, madam.
Yes, ma'am. Ma'am, I'm there. Yeah. Thank you, ma'am. Now, on behalf of Department of Biotechnology, I, Dr. Sucheta Gulwalkar, extend a warm welcome to one and all present here. I would be talking about my department, introducing my department to the guest. The Department of Biotechnology was the brainchild of our director, ma'am, Dr. Usha Mukundan. It was established in the year 2002 with only undergraduate initially. Later on, with the first batch of students passing in 2005 with their TY, we were recognized for our MSc by research as well as by papers, as well as a PhD. Currently, in 2019, the department was awarded the DBT Star funding. We have also got recognition for two of our PG diploma courses. One is clinical data management, and the other is for industrial hygiene. It gives me immense pleasure and a sense of pride to say that our students are our assets. They have excelled themselves, and many have cleared the national entrance exams, such as the IITs, NCBS, TIFR, JNU, to name a few. Also, our students are shining bright internationally where few have secured admissions in reputed universities of US, Germany, Sweden, Austria, Denmark for their PhD as well as postdoc, and also have gained positions in Ivy League colleges such as Yale. I would now request our chief guest, Dr. Narendra Chirmule, to announce the publication of the department website, which is one more milestone that the department would be covering today.
Wonderful. So, can we see the website?
Yes,
Thank you.
yes. Rachna ma'am will, and I will, once you say it's published.
Yes, I hereby, should I do it now?
Yes, sir, yes, sir.
Yes, I hereby announce the opening of the Department of Biotechnology website of Jhunjhunwala College. Congratulations.
Thank you, sir.
Wow. Yes, I'll look forward to looking at this website.
Yes, sir, please do.
Oh, it's being published. Amazing. Wow.
Thank you so much, sir, for gracing this occasion.
I know how much work it is to make a website. So congratulations to the whole team, not only for the work behind the biotechnology, but also for making the website. This is not an easy task.
Yeah, sir, this also announces our winner of the logo competition, which we had run for making the logo of our website.
So we had asked the students to, give in their, it was a competition which was held for the students of Department of Biotechnology.
That's beautiful. That's well done.
Due to the
great. I look forward to being on this website.
Yes, sir.
Surely you will be the first one to be our guest lecturer on this event. So this is our upcoming event page. We are celebrating 1st to 7th September as a nutrition week. We are having talks by 2 nutritionists.
Very nice.
And we are also having one competition for the students for making salad and decoration, etc.
Very
so this
nice.
is our faculty page. We have got one alumni corner, tips from alumni, value-added courses, research katta, where we are going to mention, we are going to tell about all the research work that is going on in the department. So various projects we'll be showcasing. So these are a few glimpses of the website. You can later on, I will send the link. You can see the website yourself.
Yes, I will surely look at it and
Thank
give
you, sir,
my
for inaugurating
feedback.
this. It was our honor that we got a guest like you to inaugurate such a. It is a very important event in our department's history.
Thank you. No, thank you so much for giving me the opportunity to do this. Great.
Yeah. So I will stop this now.
Amazing. Okay.
Is Sir the co-host, Rachna? Sir can share his slides?
Wait
can,
1 minute.
Yeah, we can.
Yeah, I should be able to share my slides. But before I share my slides, let me, while I see everyone, maybe it's a good time for some of us to take a photograph. So if,
yes, sir.
People
can ask everybody. Yes, sir.
Because after 1 hour, everybody will be tired.
Yeah, we can ask students, please put on your videos so that we can take a screenshot.
Yeah, this is so memorable. Thank you so much. So I was talking to a few people before the call started. And before I start showing you the slides that I'm going to show, I want to tell you my journey of Jhunjhunwala College. And many students, I was talking to Jasvinder, and she was saying that she joined when she was in after 11th. I also came to Jhunjhunwala College as a completely naive student and I was in Lucknow. So I don't know if some of our colleagues are on the call or not, like maybe Vinay Madan or somebody, or they're probably not on this call, but maybe in the recording, we can touch base with them. So क्या हुआ ना कि लखनऊ से आया था मैं और बॉम्बे में आ रहे रहने के लिए और बॉम्बे के जो when you come from Lucknow and you come to Bombay, you kind of have a little bit of an inferiority complex because Bombay is such a big city and Lucknow ke gaon se aaye ho, and there's nothing that that is common. So I ended up walking those corridors or the steps, those steps of Jhunjhunwala College up and down, and all these new students, and you come to a brand new college and you're completely dazed about what's happening. And that's when I met Vinay Madan, and Vinay was a friend of mine from Jhunjhunwala College on day one, and I guess one of the reasons I gravitated towards meeting him was he spoke Hindi, and since I lived in Lucknow, my Marathi also wasn't great, so I didn't gravitate towards Marathi students. So all my friends in the first couple of years were all from Uttar Pradesh and Bihar. So Ashok Singh, I don't know if he's there on the call. So all of the guys who were Hindi speaking were my friends initially. So sort of gravitated towards that kind of students. That's sort of my first experiences of Jhunjhunwala College. And then I used to play badminton and table tennis quite well. Because in school, when I was in Kendriya Vidyalaya, I had played competitive badminton. In fact, I had won the National Badminton Championship of all Kendriya Vidyalaya, all India Kendriya Vidyalaya. So I was pretty good so I was this dehati guy who didn't know anything about being cool in Bombay, so you have to fit in somehow, right? You have to fit into the culture of the organization. And so there used to be a table tennis tournament and a badminton tournament. And so when there was a badminton, I won the badminton championship. Uske baad wo jo board hota hai na, uska naam, you put winners of. Do you still do that? Is it still like handwritten on chalk on the black board?
Yes, sir. Yeah.
Wow. So, wow, that's amazing. Don't ever get rid of that. Kitna bhi electronic hone do.
Yeah, we do have an electronic, the digital one, the TV also, but we do make it a point of writing with colorful chalk.
Yeah, exactly. So, so when I saw my name there, that was like transformation for me, right? And it's like everybody started knowing who I was, and that's sort of what was an interesting journey for me for fitting into the crowd. And then one thing led to another, and Usha, I don't know whether you remember this. This is a long time ago. It's marked in my memory, but you may remember this. I was for 3 years, right? First year, second year, third year BSc. I did zoology. First year mein
Yes.
teacher strike tha. Second year mein non-teacher strike tha. Right? So dono saal there was no final exam. So we had never given exam for 3 years. I gave only really one. We only gave the local Jhunjhunwala College ka exam, not the university ka exam. And we were from the first batch of 12th, right? First 12th ka batch, when they were converting from 11 plus 3 to 12 plus 2, or 10 plus 2 that you have now. And so the only exam that we gave was the final exam, which was on year 3. And as Usha said, I was lucky to get the Rameshwar Prasad Sabu gold medal at that time, which was another like hallmark thing. And I have to tell you a story about this, Jaswinder, this might relate to you. Then I did my master's. क्योंकि ना BSc zoology पर क्या करते हो यार? कौन job देता है zoology के बाद? And your teachers or your mentors, जो teachers करेंगे वही करते हो, और क्या करोगे, है ना? तो Usha madam, Ronald madam, all of these people were there, and Bhagwat sir was there, and Karmarkar sir was there at that time, and Kale sir was there at that time. And they were like our gods, right? They were like, this is what we want, this is what we aspire to be. And so we basic की बात क्या करना है, MSc करना है. तो MSc बहते गए, 3 साल हो गए, फिर 5 साल हो गए. And then I came, I was first in college in masters, and I came third in the university in masters also. And so what happened was, then I went to Bhagwat sir and I said, you know, मुझे teaching का job चाहिए. And Bhagwat sir ने नहीं दिया job. So, you know, and he gave it to Campwala, who was my contemporary. And Campwala had come fourth and I had come third. So third आके मुझे नहीं दे रहे, उसको क्यों दे रहे हो? Like I was so angry with Bhagwat sir, and you know, and so when I finished masters, then I didn't get this job. Like I thought, अगर अपने ही college में first आने के बाद job नहीं मिलेगा तो और कहाँ job मिलेगा? कुछ नहीं मिलेगा इसके बाद. Like, you know, then at that time there was a lot of turmoil, I guess, in my mind, and that I remember. So then I had never worked. India mein, you know, I think I don't know if the situation has changed now, but you know, when you're in college, you don't work. You just go home and go to college. So the first time that I was looking for a job, I looked at the Times of India advertisements, and I kept applying to all kind of classified ads. You know, zoology ke baad, what kind of jobs do you apply for? I applied for pesticide companies. You know, जो चूहा मारने के लिए वो companies होते हैं ना, because zoology, right? So figured that was. And then after a month, I think, after getting frustrated, I just started applying to anything and everything that I could see. And so I applied to this company called Ajit India. And Ajit India is a company which was near Eros, Bombay mein. Uske piche it was quite a big company. I didn't realize that at that time. They used to sell windows, not Microsoft Windows, खिड़की बेचते थे वो लोग. और job मुझे क्या मिला था कि खिड़की बेचने का job नहीं मिला था. I had got a job to be the assistant to the filing manager. जो, you know, you have the files, na? So वो files, you had to file these things. These files of all the customers that you had, and those files had to be kept in a particular order. And my job was to assist the guy who used to do the filing. वो जो owner था उस company का, उसको मेरे ख्याल से दया आ गया कि, you know, कि after masters he's not getting a job, चलो कुछ job दे देते हैं उसको. So I got a job. I was getting something like 200 rupees or something, which was like phenomenal amount of money for me at that time, because staying at home. So that was my first job. But you know, one of the things I learned through the process of learning things, to this day, the way I arrange my files even on my computer is the way that guy taught me in 1982. The filing, he was not even educated. I don't think he had finished his high school also, but he was doing filing for a decade in that company. उसका वही job था, filing करना, right? Alphabetical. Then which customer comes first? Some order to the customer. All everything manual, right? Which customer comes first? Within the file, how do you arrange it chronologically? Nobody had taught us this, how to file. Junjunwala mein, we had not learned how to file things. We learned biology and zoology, but we never learned how to file things. But then that's where I learned how to file. I was there for 2 months or 3 months over there, and I started liking the job. You know, it wasn't bad. But in the meanwhile, I had given my application to do my PhD in Cancer Research Institute, and one thing led to another, and I got my admission to PhD, and then that sort of my journey changed after that. But just to tell you one small story of my Junjunwala experiences, I thought I'd start with that. So let me pause here. I don't know how much time we have. Suchita, it is... So
there's no limit. There's no time limit.
No. We will. I will. So I'd love to pause at times and see if there are questions, because I'm going to talk about a little bit about what I've written in the book, and especially I'm going to tell you one story about gene therapy, and that I could do that for about half an hour or so. But let me pause here and see if the students have any questions on my journey so far from Jhinjhinwala.
So I think classification you must have done in your zoology, right? That must have helped you to arrange the files also.
Exactly, and I'll tell you another thing in that, right? So silly anecdote on that. So the guy who used to do the filing, usko to padhna nahi aata tha. He could not read what was in the files, like he not very well, at least. When I started doing the filing after 2 months, I knew how to file now, right? So now I started reading the files, right? Kaun kya hai, and I used to make notes. Ki, acha, this file for this customer, the last time we connected with this customer was 2 years ago. How come we've not connected to this for so long? And then I started making a list of all the people we had not connected for so long, and I started making those lists. Then the marketing guys who had to sell all of these products started getting angry at me. Tu sara batata hai sab boss ko ki hum log ne kiya nahi. That's where I started learning politics, right? It's like strange things you learn, isn't it?
Yeah, correct. So it's the experience that teaches.
Exactly. I mean, I was doing it innocently, right?
Right.
I mean, I was doing it for the good of mankind. If I make a list, the company will be beneficial, and it looked interesting. And then what happened was there was one file in which it was an international file. They were selling windows to some US company, and I remember at that time it was $20,000, right? And it was a different colored file. I can't remember what color it was, but it was clearly different color, right? So I looked at it and started reading $20,000, and I went and told the owner, see, I found this file, and it's been a while since we've connected. That's the first time he said, "You are not supposed to touch that file." Nobody told me that, but then you start learning rules and regulations in a company, right? And so like small things like this. Of course, at that time, all of these systematic thinking of you observing something and then absorbing that into your own experiences, that वो अकल नहीं होती है, right? वो 50 साल के बाद अकल आती है, तब तक बहुत लेट हो जाएगा. By then it's too late. But ठीक है, बता तो सकते हैं दूसरों को कि ये है, and this situation happened. And so observe. So the lessons for me in those first couple of years were, when you observe things, observe it, and then sort of absorb it also a little bit. And there's a process to absorb it, and you have to develop methodologies for your own self. So I know there's something on the chat, but is there any question? I'd love to answer a few questions before we go.
Jaswinder has already put up a question. Did you ever have plans of getting a job? If not this, then what? And if yes, how did you make that choice? What was it based on?
Yeah, so Jaswinder, what had happened is, after not getting the job as a lecturer in Jhinjhinwala College, which, by the way, after many years later, I did talk to Bhagwat sir, and he told me specifically that he did not give me the job because he wanted me to go and do my PhD. Actually, he wanted me to go to the US and do my PhD there. And that's why he didn't give me the job, because if I had given you that job, you would have not done something different. A really good conversation I had with Bhagwat. He was really my mentor. But anyway, so Jaswinder, by the time I was looking for this job to sell windows, this Ajit India Windows job, I had probably applied for tens of jobs, maybe, I don't remember, dozens of jobs at least. Or reply nahi milta hai. Reply, us time to kya yaar, phone nahi tha, kuch nahi tha, you have to write letter likhna hai, right? And then you don't even get replies, and unless you have some contact, you can't, you contact kya network, hum log sifarish bolte hain na, we talk India mein to sifarish ke bina job nahi milta hai. Sab jagah sifarish hi hota hai. Sifarish is network, It is your network of how you create whose responsibility is it to create the network? Your own. Who will create your network other than you? Right? It is your responsibility to create your network. So, anyway, that's how jobs happened. And there's a long story around my PhD, how I got admission in my PhD also, which is sort of a anecdote in of itself. So anyway, so that is so. Do you want me to do the presentation, or do you want me to just have these conversations? I'm okay either way.
Students, do you have any questions, or can sir start with his presentation?
Yeah, let's make Jaswinder make that decision. Should I do the presentation, or
Yes,
should
sir,
I have these
please.
conversations?
No, sir, please have both. I want
No, you
to
can't
see the presentation as well as I want to listen to
She
you.
is biotech. She wants both.
No,
She cannot settle
Jaswinder.
for one.
Yes,
No,
sir.
Jaswinder, this is life story. You cannot have both. You can have only one. Make a decision. Which one would you rather have?
Then presentation first and conversation later. I'd rather have both.
You're not going to get both. जिंदगी में एक ही चीज मिलती है. एक ही decision लेना है. ये करना है, वो करना है.
I want to hear about good genes gone bad.
Okay, so let me tell you what I'm telling you about. So I'm going to show you a process of how to make decisions. Okay, and so Jaswinder, you're going to make a decision on something very abstract. I'm going to show you a process of how to make a decision, and this will apply to everything that you do in life. So there must be a conference room in Jhunjhunwala College.
Yes, sir.
Like a very important conference room where maybe the principal and everybody, when important people come, ऐसा कोई conference room होगा.
जी sir, है.
है ना? तो Jaswinder, we are going to paint that conference room shocking neon pink.
Okay.
So should we paint that room shocking neon pink?
No.
Okay. So I'm going to show you a process of how to make this decision. Okay. And I'm going to walk you through the process, and the same process you will use to decide whether I will do the presentation or the question and answer. And this decision will take 2 minutes. So you have to bear with me a little bit.
Okay.
So the decision-making process involves 3 steps. It's called the DAI process of decision-making. And students, you might want to write these as notes. DAI of the decision-making process. In the D, which is the decision, there are 2 steps. One is you have to pre-decide the decider. And second, the question on which you're going to make the decision has to be very precise and accurate. Okay, if it was a physical class, I would have gone through a little bit a longer process to make you figure out what the question is. But the question goes like this: should we paint the room shocking neon pink? This is a very precise and accurate question, which is a high quality decision question. Why is it accurate? Because it has a yes/no answer. You can only make a decision if the question has a yes/no answer. So your question has to be very good, and it has to be very precise. Why is it precise? Because it only talks about the shocking neon pink color. Okay? So I see Tanya's video is on. So Tanya,
yes,
the Jaswinder is the pre-decided decider of whether to paint the room pink.
yes.
Okay? And I'll tell you the reason why she's the pre-decided decider. It is not easy to decide. Okay, actually, let's do this exercise. Who should, in Jhunjhunwala College, who should decide who should be the decider of whether to paint it shocking? Who give me the designation of the person who should decide whether that room should be shocking neon pink? Not the name. I want the designation of that person.
The principal.
Yeah, is the principal the best person to make the decision? No, usually not.
No.
Then who should be the best person? I'll tell you. There are a lot of answers. And no answer is correct.
Yeah.
The best decision is the persons who use the room the most.
Yeah.
They should make the decision. So let's say Jaswinder is the representative of the people who use the room the most. That's why she's the decision maker. Okay, agree?
Okay.
Okay. Now, in the decision making process, you have a decided decider, and you have the question is precise and accurate. So Tanya, ask her the question: should we paint the room shocking neon pink? Ask her.
Jaswinder, should we paint the room shocking neon pink?
Wait,
No,
Jaswinder,
Tanya,
no. Jaswinder, don't answer the question yet, because the second step in the decision-making process is A, which stands for advice.
Advice.
At this stage, you're not making a decision. Now, everybody in this Zoom call should give Jaswinder advice on whether to paint this room shocking neon pink or not. Please give her advice. Jaswinder, you should get advice also. It is, as a decision maker, it is your responsibility to get as much advice as possible.
HOD madam, what do you think?
No, I don't think we should paint it shocking neon pink.
Rachna ma'am, Namrata ma'am, Saleha
There
ma'am.
are almost all of them. Yeah, students are
All
also
of them are
saying
saying no.
All of them are saying no, right?
Hmm.
Does anyone?
Yeah, no, it looked very shocking.
Yeah. Does anyone feel like it should be painted? Does anyone in this room feel like it should be painted shocking neon pink? No one. Okay. All right. So Jaswinder, when you make any decision, is there unlimited time to get advice? No.
No.
Your advice time is finished. Okay.
link closed.
Yeah. So
Yes.
normally what I do is it's very easy. It's much easier to do it in person, but it's going to be a little artificial when I do it. When I do the next thing with Jaswinder, you have to make believe. All of you on this call, everybody on you on this call, have to make believe that this conversation that I'm going to have one-on-one with Jaswinder next, you can't hear this conversation. Okay? Think as if you haven't heard this conversation. Only Jaswinder and I are talking. Okay? So Jaswinder, I'm going to ask you this question. Should we paint the room shocking neon pink?
So as per everyone's advice, what I have come to a conclusion is that we shouldn't.
You shouldn't. Okay. Okay. Thank you. All right. Now you all can hear me. Now you can all hear me. You haven't heard this conversation we've had. Okay. Now, Suchita ma'am and all of you, Rachana ma'am and Usha ma'am, who is the pre-decided decider?
The principal.
Jaswinder.
Jaswinder. Yeah, in this case, Jaswinder. Yeah.
What is the question? Should we paint the room shocking neon pink? Correct?
Yes,
and she's got the advice, no? You all gave her advice, no? You know what? She made the decision. Do you know what it is?
to paint it pink.
No. Do you know the decision that she made? She made the decision, but you know what it is. She told me the decision.
No. We don't know.
But since you did not hear our conversation, you don't know the decision, no? Because why? Because the third part of decision-making process is inform, I. If you don't inform what the decision is, it is as good as not made. कितनी बार होता है क्या डिसीजन लिया पता नहीं किसने लिया पता नहीं क्या यार हम लोग करे जा रहे हैं काम कौन डिसीजन लेता है पता नहीं ये इन्फॉर्म ही नहीं जिसने वो डिसीजन लिया वो इन्फॉर्म नहीं कर रहा है and if you don't inform the decision is as good as not made. But if you follow the process of this DAI process of decision making, every decision that you make will be very, very good. So now Tanya, ask Jaswinder clearly the question again.
Jaswinder, what color should be?
No.
Sorry. Should we color the conference room neon pink?
And the answer is?
Ma'am, with everyone's advice, we have decided not to do it. That's what I'm informing you.
Not we. You have decided.
I have decided. Okay, I have decided that we wouldn't paint the walls neon shocking pink.
Yeah,
And,
the simple answer would be no.
No.
That's all we are looking for. Okay. So now is the decision clear? The decision making process is very good, no?
Yes.
Yeah. So now I'll ask you this next question, Jaswinder. Was the decision good? Was it a good decision?
Yes, sir.
Okay. All right. So you made the decision today. Today is Wednesday, no?
Yes, sir. 1st September, Wednesday.
Wednesday, right? Let's say now, fast forward 2 days, it's Friday morning. Okay? I am coming to Jhunjhunwala College. I am the president of Breast Cancer Association of India. Okay? And I come to the conference room and I just think to myself, if only this room was shocking neon pink, I would have paid Jhunjhunwala College $100 million. Now, was it a good decision? No, you didn't get the $100 million. Therefore, what in every decision that you make in your lifetime is 50% wrong. No matter what decision you make in your lifetime, it's wrong. किससे शादी करोगी गलत decision है. Botany करना है, zoology करना है, गलत decision है. बाद में ही पता चलता है कि सही है कि नहीं. So don't get paralyzed by saying I can't make decisions. Every decision in the lifetime is wrong. Right? Today, President Biden made a decision. He said something like that he made a good decision to bring all the troops back. बाद में ही पता चलेगा ना whether it was good to bring the troops back or not. अभी थोड़ी पता चलेगा. You can't declare कि decision was good. हमको बाद में आपको बताएंगे कि अच्छा था कि नहीं. So therefore, every decision that you make is 50% wrong. So with that in mind, this is the decision-making process. And like this, I do a lot of different things. I do a lot of different topics I talk about. And one of the things in the pedagogy of education, and this is Sucheta and Usha and Manshu, what I would really strongly recommend is to develop a program where such soft skills are systematically taught to students, not left to chance, right? And I can help you in some way in terms of developing such methodologies. And this cannot be done, it has to be weaved through the process of while teaching science. ऐसा नहीं हो सकता कि अब soft skill के लिए भैया training के लिए आ जाओ, कोई नहीं आएगा.
Sir, I have one question.
Yeah, please.
So that decision which was taken 2 days back, for that day it is correct.
That day is correct. That day it is correct. But you can't predict कि बाद में क्या होने वाला है. So if I ask,
she has taken advice of everyone.
She has taken advice of everyone, right? Another point in the advice that we get confused by, and Jaswinder didn't ask this specific question. If Usha madam would have said yes, right? And let's say,
Himanshu sir also.
Let's if Usha madam would have said yes, and let's say Saloni Thakur would have said no, whose advice was better? She will naturally think Usha madam's advice is better, no? Because of the rank. It is not always that the higher rank person gives the good advice. फालतू advice, बड़े लोग फालतू advice देते हैं. मैं भी फालतू advice देता हूँ. Decision आपको लेना है.
So what if it would have been 50% yes and 50%?
No, so if it is 50-50, that is like voting, right?
Yeah.
Voting is not a good. You think? Do we think voting is a good way to make a decision? It's the worst way to make a decision. No accountability, right? So when you make a decision, even if you get 50-50 जब करते हो ना, तब तुमको advice मिल रहा है. वो advice लेके what decision are you making? That is you have to make a decision on the top of that. Okay. So Jaswinder, finally now after all this shebang, I'm going to ask you the question: should I do the presentation?
Yes, sir. I want you to do the presentation.
Okay,
Everyone's
done.
advice.
Done. Done. We'll do the presentation. Which means we are not doing any more question and answer. Oh no, I'm kidding.
No, we'll take that at the end, sir. We'll take the questions.
I hope that this was useful for you to just understand the decision-making process.
Very.
Okay, so I made a few slides, and I think I'm going to go through the slides a little faster than I originally planned to. I'm happy to share the slides with everybody. So I was going to talk about a book that I have recently written, and this is just my introduction that has already been done. These are some pictures of mine in 1977. I used to play badminton. And then in 1987, after doing my PhD on leprosy, on the leprosy vaccine, I had come to give a talk in Chirmule College 10 years later, which was, quite a memorable thing for me. And this is Bhagwat sir here. Sharon, what he was from Wilson College. What was his name? The professor in the middle. He was from Wilson College.
Dr. Muthe.
Anyway, Dr.
Muthe, sir.
Dr. Muthe, yes. And Dr. Karmakar here. And there are more people in the audience here. So anyway, that was sort of quick historical. You've already talked about my experiences, and I have a process of how to describe your own CV in a systematic way. Maybe at some later date, I will talk to you, especially the students, of how to talk about yourself, because that is very important in life. So then I wrote a book. What was the central thought of the book was the history of vaccine and biologics development through my own personal experiences. And Penguin is publishing this book. And why did I write this book? It is my experiences in drug development in various places that I have worked throughout my career, which has taken me to a lot of failures in experiments, colossal failures. And in all cases, these failures were followed by phenomenal successes. Indeed, were it not for the failures, the path of success that would have followed would have been hazy, long-winded, and tiresome. And to appreciate the success, I thought it was important to chronicle and recognize the contribution of things that went wrong. So, when I talked to when the Penguin approached me about writing this book, I felt this was something that people have not really written about, failed drugs. So I like to talk about a topic called inflection points. And the inflection point is a point of the curve at which a curve changes. And normally I do this a little bit more extended explanation of the inflection point, but I will show this quickly. Since you're students of biology and biotechnology, you know that when you grow cells in a tissue culture flask like this, it will always grow in a sigmoid curve, right? It goes straight line, then exponential, and then you have a flattening of the curve. So why does it grow exponential? It had the option of growing linear, but it doesn't. No biological system grows linear. It always grows exponential. So when you have a cell culture, the cells are happy. They have a lot of nutrients, they have a lot of space, there are no inhibitors. Cell density is low, there are a lot of growth factors, the environmental and genetic factors are very favorable, and suddenly everything good happens and the cells start growing. Now, then what happens is, once the cells grow to the maximum, nutrients are finished, now there's no space, there's inhibition of growth. The cell density is very high. Now the cells are secreting toxins and the environment is very bad and the cells are dying, right? And that's when you get your flattening of your curve. It is precisely the same mechanism of your career. And the factors that are important for exponential growth of your career, I have listed them here. There may be more, but these are the ones that I can think of that are very important. Courage, discipline, attitude, passion, decision-making, effective communication, truthfulness, and your health are very important factors for exponential growth of your career. If you want a linear curve, ठीक है, ये मत करो सब कुछ. Linear curve will be still there. It's not bad. But if you want an exponential curve, you have to do a couple of these things. If you don't do any of these things, your curve will not be exponential. When I do this presentation and I have a discussion with students and others, वो लोग ये भी बोलते हैं ना कि पढ़ना चाहिए, you should know your subject. वो सब तो पता ही होना चाहिए. That is for your linear curve. है ना? knowing biotechnology, knowing zoology, knowing all of these things you need for a linear curve. Exponential chahiye to ye sab karna padega. It's a philosophical thing. You might have to think deeply about this. And those are things that you can do that in your control. There are a lot of things that happen that are not in your control that can make your curve exponential. The environment. Chundinwala College is an amazing environment for success. The opportunities that you get, your mentor, your teacher, your time that you, how effectively you control your time, your support system, and luck. These are not in your control, but they can change your life dramatically. So knowing all of these things is important. And so when I looked at drug development of things that have failed and succeeded over the years, when I sort of did an analysis of myself to see what is happening, I noticed and I'm going to just talk to you about one chapter in this book, actually a subset of one chapter in this book on gene therapy, where I mapped the successes and failures of gene therapy in a graph where I show that from 1993 there was huge successes, then something happened, then it failed, then it went up and down, and now 2019, 2020 we are seeing success stories in gene therapy. But before, for the last 3 decades, there were a lot of failures. So what are those failures is all written in the book. And this is the book I've written. It's published by, it's going to be published by end of September. You should be able to get it on Amazon, and it should be available in bookstores all over India. These are the chapters that I've written. There are 7 major stories, but each chapter has more than one story. So actually there are 2 or 3 stories per chapter. So there are at least 25 stories of drugs that have failed and then succeeded in the course of these studies. So I'm just going to tell you one story as an example. And I've also written the story of the vaccine for COVID. And in many of these stories that I've written, I have been personally involved in many of these stories myself. I've worked on many of these drugs, like the vaccine for AIDS, the rotavirus vaccine, immunotherapy for cancer, gene therapy, all of that. I've worked on these personally myself. So I've been able to tell my own personal stories of people I've worked with. So the story that I'm going to tell you is about gene therapy, and it starts with hemophilia. And this is my friend Murli, who was doing his PhD with me in Cancer Research Institute. He's about 4 or 5 years junior to me in college, but he's actually older than me, slightly older than me. He has a severe deletion of his factor VIII gene. If he climbs a flight of stairs, he will do internal bleeding and he will die. He injects himself with factor VIII protein every day. Every day he will inject himself with factor VIII, and that factor VIII injection that he takes costs $4,500 per injection every day for his life. So he spends about $80,000 a year just on the injection, which is required for his survival. This is not for any luxury. If he doesn't take it, he will die. That is how severe his hemophilia is. I've written about his story in the book and the way he lives his life. When you look at gene therapy, one of the first gene therapies that was really dramatic cover of Nature showed these green mice which were expressing green fluorescent protein. This is just for dramatic effect, but you can transform genes. You can use genes to transform lives. The history of gene therapy, I'm not going to read all of these per se, but what I wanted to, these are the stories that I've written in the book throughout, from insulins to first gene therapy in '89, then the failures. I'm going to tell you a little bit about these failures, and then finally the current approval of gene therapy drugs. There are 30,000 genes, approximately 30,000 genes in our human body, with 30,000 genes which have exons, which actually express proteins. There are many more, and that comprises about 5% of the human genome. 95% of the human genome doesn't express proteins, and it is required for regulation of these 30,000 genes. It's surprising that of the drugs that have ever been discovered by mankind, only approximately 700 genes have been targets for those drugs. So almost 30,000 genes are still don't have drug targets against them. So those of you who are doing biotechnology, the field of biotechnology is not even gone. If you think about the school, if biotechnology is in school, then it has not even gone to kindergarten yet. बहुत काम करना बाकी है biotechnology में. So when you look at genes, one of the first gene that was identified to be associated with the disease was the cystic fibrosis transmembrane receptor. It is a gene which when mutated, does not allow, it is a chloride channel. It doesn't, the chloride ions cannot transfer from the inside the cell to the lumen of this, of the lung. And because of that, there is accumulation of secreted materials like viscous mucus, which then traps Pseudomonas bacteria, and the children die of Pseudomonas infections. So the question was, why do cystic fibrosis patients get Pseudomonas infection? Why don't they get any other infection? So it turns out, in a very elegant set of experiments that was done using gene therapy as a approach, on the left side is the lung or the trachea of a normal subject, where you have the normal CFTR gene. The chloride channel nicely transduces into the lumen, but in a CFTR mutation, the receptor mutation, the chloride channel cannot come into the lumen, and the lumen then becomes of a very high pH. Right? Because there are no negatively charged chloride channels. And that's when Pseudomonas infection happens. So I'm going to tell you a long story quickly. It turns out that the epithelial cells of the lung express a protein called defensins. And defensins are antimicrobial peptides, which are highly conserved. They are even present in Drosophila. But they need to fold accurately to be able to function. What happens in cystic fibrosis lungs is that because of the distorted pH, these defensins cannot fold correctly, and therefore they cannot kill the bacteria, and that's why they get Pseudomonas infection. And if you express the normal CFTR gene into this lung, you should be able to correct CFTR disease, and that is the principle of how cystic fibrosis gene therapy has been tried. And the way you transduce these CFTR gene into the cell is by using viral vectors like adenovirus. So if you take an adenovirus and express the CFTR gene into that adenovirus and give it to patients of cystic fibrosis, you will see CFTR expression on day 4 after injection. The CFTR disease is a very difficult disease to treat for gene therapy. This was in 1989. Because these patients are quite sick to begin with. So then, when I was in University of Pennsylvania in the early 90s, we worked on this disease called ornithine transcarbamylase deficiency. It is a urea cycle disorder gene defects, a rare disease. And what happens is this enzyme, which is expressed in the liver, in the hepatocytes, is required for converting protein to urea. And urea is ultimately excreted. In the absence of OTC enzyme, protein forms an intermediate metabolite, which is ammonia, and this ammonia travels to the brain and causes brain injury, and these children who have the OTC deficiency die very early in life of encephalopathy. So why is OTC disease, ornithine transcarbamylase deficiency disease, a good disease to treat for gene therapy? Because it's a single gene defect. We know from animal studies that if you correct this disease, if you correct this one gene in the liver, you should be able to correct the disease. The second reason, which is not listed here in the slide, is that you don't need expression of all the hepatocytes to express this protein. If 5% of the hepatocyte express OTC gene, you should be able to correct this disease. So for all of these reasons, OTC was chosen as the gene therapy trial. So the trial in University of Pennsylvania at that time was an adenovirus expressing OTC And it was a dose escalation study with different higher and higher doses of vector being given to the liver. The results were the first 17 patients tolerated the disease, tolerated the vector, but there was no significant expression of the OTC gene when we looked for gene expression in the hepatocytes. The 18th patient, when given the drug, died 5 days after vector. And we tried to find out why the patient died. And the patient died of DIC, which is disseminated intravascular coagulopathy, which is essentially what we know from COVID today, cytokine storm. You know, it is the manifestation of a cytokine storm. You give this adenovirus, you cause this huge inflammatory response in the body, and there's multi-organ failure, and the patient died. And that's what happened. This paper was published in 2000, but the patient died in 1999, September 17th to 1999. So this was a traumatic event, not just for the trial, but for the entire field of gene therapy, saying that adenoviral vectors or any viral vector cannot be used successfully to treat gene therapy. So there's big. I told you that this book is about colossal failures, right? So this is the colossal failure that happened in the gene therapy trial, and the inflection point curve came darting down. Clinical trials all around the world which were being done for gene therapy were stopped, came to a screeching halt, and everything was the whole field from 1999 to around 2010 approximately. For almost 10 years, not much work, not much progress was being made in the area of gene therapy. At that time, Jim Wilson, who was the director of the OTC trial and the gene therapy program at Penn, moved from using adenoviral vectors to adeno-associated viral vectors. He had gone through incredible amount of this difficulty because he was the wrath of a lot of investigations and both civil and criminal investigations of which he all came through, but he survived and he had the courage to overcome all of those problems and then discovered he along with two other scientists, Arun Srivastav and Jude Samalsky, they discovered a whole series of new viral vectors, which are called adeno-associated viral vectors, which are much more effective in transducing genes like the adenovirus, but they don't induce inflammation. This was a new discovery at that time. And you can take adenovirus, in this case expressing GFP, injected into a muscle of a mouse or a monkey, and the cells will turn green. You put it into the eye, the GFP will express in the rod cells of the eye. And so when Jean Bennett in University of Pennsylvania looked at AAV, and she's a ophthalmologist, and I was collaborating with her at that time. She was looking at this gene called retinosa pigmentosa esterase. It's an enzyme which, when absent, when the gene is mutated, it causes blindness. And there's an animal model for it. This dog doesn't have this gene. And when this gene is expressed using an adeno-associated viral vector, this dog can actually see. So this was a remarkable discovery or progress in the field of gene therapy. And that was 2007, when this positive study in gene therapy came about. And this is Jean Bennett. She really spearheaded this whole effort of using the RPE65 gene for clinical trials, which ultimately led to the approval of this drug called Luxturna, which is adeno-associated virus expressing RPE, which is used for treating RPE genetic mutations in human babies, and they can see due to this gene therapy. This is the success story. Since 2019, in the last 2 years, there have been many other gene therapy drugs that have been approved, some of which I talk about in the book. And then finally, taking the full story from my friend Murli, the hemophilia gene therapy trials also have been going on. There are phase 3 trials going on in the hemophilia program and expressing AAV expressing the factor VIII proteins and allowing for correction of hemophilia. Kathy Hai is a good friend of mine. So she is doing a lot, she's pioneering this work on treatment of hemophilia with gene therapy. And finally, I'm not going to read all of these. There is the holy grail of gene therapy. All of these things have to be accomplished for gene therapy to occur. This is Murli, as I met him last week in Chicago, doing really well with his hemophilia. But I'm so happy that I have such a great friend for maybe 45 years. So gene therapy is a classic disruptive technology. It is so different, it will impact the entire practice of medicine. But we as a society will figure it out. We'll have some successes, we'll have some failures. It is the science that we are still learning, and it is not routine. And we are just at the very beginning of gene therapy. So I've written all of this in the book. You can pre-order the book. It'll come out later this September. It's on Amazon. It will also be available in bookstores. And I'll end by, just sharing some incredible memories of the 5 years I was actually there at Jhunjhunwala College. But then, lifetime of memories with all of you who I have interacted with over the last so many decades. So thank you very much for the opportunity, and I'd love to continue the conversation, even though I told Jaswinder we will not. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir. We'll take questions now. Students, please put up your questions in the chat. Tanya ma'am, I think you can take the questions.
Yeah,
Okay. Tough to ask questions, isn't it? It is very difficult to ask questions. Yeah, somebody's asking, Chaitanya, about AIDS vaccine, right? Yeah, Chaitanya, I can surely tell you about the AIDS vaccine. There is a whole chapter dedicated to the AIDS vaccine in the book. It is one of the most important things in mankind, like humans, to develop a vaccine against AIDS. It's been very, very difficult. And there are many reasons why it is difficult. One of the main reasons is HIV kills the CD4 positive cell, which is the most important cell in the immune system to develop an immune response. So when HIV kills the CD4 positive cell, it is just impossible. It's very difficult to make a vaccine which requires the CD4 cell. And when you get infected, it kills the cell that is going to protect you. So that is one of the reasons why it's difficult to make an AIDS vaccine. People are trying. Any other question? I'd like to know. Can someone read others' question? It's really tiny.
Yeah, I can read that for you.
Yeah.
He wants to know the injected vaccine.
Yeah.
So I'll just read out whatever he's written. I wanted to know, sir, the one who has injected vaccine in own body was previously tried, or it was first time he had made the choice to inject?
Which I'm not getting the question. Who inject? I
think
don't understand the reference to context.
Murli.
Yeah.
Murli, yeah.
Yeah, I think he's asking about Murli.
Yeah, Murli is not taking the vaccine. Murli is taking an injection of the factor VIII protein, which is the clotting factor.
Yeah.
It has been tested. It has been approved. He goes and he has to get this as a prescription. It is like a drug. Like you take paracetamol when you get a headache. He has to take factor VIII injection to survive.
It's a medicine for him.
Every day.
It's a medicine for him. Yeah, he's injected their own. He has learned to inject himself because it's because he has to inject himself every day. कौन आएगा उसको inject करने के लिए? खुद ही लेना पड़ता है. Or when he falls down, So, and he gets hurt, who will inject? He only has to inject, no? So he had to learn to inject. So can you imagine what his veins and nerves look like? He's been injecting himself every day for 60 years. He has no veins. Nothing is available. He injects in all kinds of weird places. And it's extremely painful, right? One injection, every day, intravenous injection. Yeah, any next question?
Yeah, there is a question from Dr. Namrata Parab. Is acceptance of gene therapy a challenge for patients? What ethical questions need to be addressed so as to convince the user?
Excellent question, excellent question. Gene therapy is in an area where, right now we are at the infancy, right? We're in infancy in terms of gene therapy. The drugs that have been approved for gene therapy right now, like I showed you about the disease, the RPE65 gene expression in the eye, that drug costs close to $1 million for one injection, 7 crore for one injection. Kaun dega? So forget about ethics at this point. Can you afford this? You can't afford this today. So it's a long ways before we can talk about this kind of affordability. From an ethical perspective, in my mind, I mean, I'm no expert in terms of ethical discussion, but I've been involved in a lot of ethical discussions in various drug development agencies. In gene therapy, the rules and regulations that enable gene therapy to be done are much more stricter for drugs than for any other drug that we develop a drug for. So even in India, the Drug and Cosmetic Acts have been, there are amendments to the Drug and Cosmetic Acts which state that you cannot do gene therapy without going through the ethics committee, without going through IBSC committees, like the biosafety committees. There are 3 or 4 committees that you have to go through before you can even start working on research on gene therapy, if the research is intended to be in a clinical trial. So lots of checks and balances are put in regulations to ensure that things with gene therapy don't happen. But there will always be a rogue person who does something, like we heard about the Chinese investigator who did gene editing of the CCR5 gene in these 2 children, and those children are there now with CCR5 deleted genes. Yeah, I like this question by Chaitanya. How did you stumble upon? How did you stumble upon Cornell University? Well, actually, what happens is this is where the environment plays a big role, right? So one thing I didn't know this when I was joining Cancer Research Institute in 1982 after Jhunjhunwala, but Cancer Research Institute at that time was one of the most premier. It was Tata Hospital, right? It was one of the most premier cancer hospitals of the world, not just in India. I didn't know that when I joined. I didn't know the magnitude of how big it was. Later on, I knew. So people from Cornell came to, not just Cornell, from all over the world, from different parts of the world, came and visited Cancer Research Institute all the time. We used lectures by all these people all the time. So the professor who I went and did my postdoctoral research fellow, I met that professor in Cancer Research Institute in Mumbai. So there's no stumbling. The environment created in CRI allowed all of us to have access to these international scientists literally on a day-to-day basis. Yeah, so the environment, pay attention to that environment. Every point that I made in fact, I'll share the slides, and I've sent the slide to Usha madam. Usha, please feel free to share the slides with everyone, whoever wants it.
Sure.
Yeah, any other questions?
I had one question.
Yeah, please.
See, research cannot be rewarding every single day. Quite often you do an entire experiment and then you realize, oh, it didn't work, even though the protocol said if you do so and so thing, it's going to work. So how do you keep yourself motivated? Because many of these students are also aspiring to do research and do good work. So what you do to motivate yourself when you're in the lab?
Yeah. So when I was, that age, or when I was doing my master's or my PhD, or I was studying at that time, I was not aware of all of these things that I do now, right? 50 years later, I'm much more, I have gray hair to do all of things. So what I do now, Usha, when things don't work or when things go wrong, I play my flute. I go and play a game of badminton.
Very nice. Good,
right?
good.
So
So you mean there should be a hobby, right?
You should have multiple things to do.
Yeah.
If your whole actually, maybe it's not great advice. It is an advice. So you'll have to take that's why तुमको बहुत लोग ज्ञान देंगे, क्या ज्ञान relevant है, तुम्ही को पता चलेगा क्या what relevant है. So I'll tell you how that is relevant, right? So Usha asked me this question of what do I do when I get frustrated and an experiment doesn't work. And one answer can be, I'm so focused on that experiment. I do that experiment and I do it again and again and again, and I try something different and I make that experiment work, right? And that is like the dedication to that experiment, and therefore that is the best advice to give, right? To answer Usha's question, right? उसी से नोबेल प्राइज मिलेगा. मेरा तुम फॉलो करोगे, फ्लूट बजाने जाओगे, जब एक्सपेरिमेंट गलत होगा, नोबेल प्राइज नहीं मिलेगा. You will be happy, but नोबेल प्राइज नहीं मिलेगा. So depending on the way I'm answering the question, you have to determine whether that answer was good or not, right? But there can be many answers to this question. So any other quick question, because I do want to share something. If people have 10 minutes more, I'm going to share something with you guys. But let's see if there are a few more questions.
There are a couple of questions more.
Let's answer the questions.
Yeah, Aditi is asking, is there something you would have done differently?
Yeah, I was afraid of that question. I think I have always lived my life like the Bhagavad Gita says, right? Like karmanyevadhikaraste. Just do what is in front of you. Don't worry about uska phal kya milne wala. I think in a way I have always done that all my life, whether knowingly or unknowingly. I've always followed that rule. So I don't think about what could have, should have, would have. I don't think about that. जो हो गया वो हो गया. अभी क्या करना है? जो है उसका आगे का देखो. पीछे क्या करना है यार? I mean, I know it's a little flaky answer, but seriously to answer to Aditi, really, if it is very hard to answer this question, for anyone, right? What would you have differently? मैं film star बनता यार, मैं शाहरुख खान बन जाता, आमिर खान बन जाता, तीसरी शादी हो जाती.
Good one. So there's another good question. When did you decide to write a book, and what inspired you to do so? This is by Omkar.
Yeah, Omkar, very good question. I've always wanted to write a book. So, in fact, over the years, I've always asked people, when I meet famous people, I ask people, what book would you write? I've like a list of things. I've asked Nobel laureates, I've asked average people and juniors, seniors, what book do you want to write? So people say all kinds of things, and it's really interesting to see what people would write about, and you can't predict what people want to write about, and everybody has an idea of what they want to write about. If you force them to think, nobody will say I don't want to write a book. I don't think there's anybody who says I may not be able to write the book, but I have an idea of what that book may be, right? So if am I pronouncing your name correctly? Tanya.
Yes, sir.
What book would you write?
Experiences.
Yeah.
Life
Of what?
experiences.
Yeah, I mean, that is the natural book that you would write. And so
Yeah.
this book is also the same for me. It is my experiences in drug development. That way, that's what I do. But what I have written a lot about in this book is I've weaved a lot of soft skills through the book of the things that I've learned along the way. So it's not just about drug development. It is about how to build your own self. I call it my experiments in self-awareness, taken from Gandhi's My Experiments with Truth. Yeah, good question, Onkar. Or I don't know who the last person was. Any other question?
Yes, there's another interesting question as a follow-up of the earlier question by Neelam. You have such an inspiring journey. Have you thought of writing an autobiography?
Yeah, this is sort of an autobiography. The one I have written is my autobiography. And actually, the Penguin guys told me to write one full chapter on who am I. So there's a whole chapter on who am I. It is sort of an autobiographical description. It's hard to write about yourself all the time. It's very egotistic. It feels like this is not right, that you should keep writing about yourself. But actually, it's a really great, your ego is like up there when you write about yourself. It's really good. Ego is not always bad. Ego can always also be good. It makes you feel fantastic. So why would you not do it, right? So I've written about myself. It is an autobiography a little bit. It is my experiences in these drug development processes that I have learned about.
And then Jaswinder has a question. What kind of regulations were imposed during the clinical trials for AIDS? Any specific amendments were made during the same?
Yeah, good question. I can't think of any specific regulation for AIDS, but in general, informed consent to ensure that the person knows what they're getting, ensuring that, if it is a child, then the guardian is the right person to give the vaccine or the drug. There are a lot of these kind of regulations that ensure that clinical trials are done in an ethical way. I'll have to get back to you to see if AIDS vaccines resulted in any specific regulation. There could be, but I can't remember one over the top of my head. Yeah, any other question?
Yes, there's one more from Adarsh. Is there any other topic apart from science on which you would like to write a book?
That's a good question. I have a very interesting journey in music. I've learned music for many years, and I've observed music in multiple different ways, right? I mean, I started by learning tabla when I was in high school, and then I played for several years and did not play for several years, then played again. And more recently, I've been learning the flute, etc., etc. I've been deeply interested in classical music, and I understand the gharanas and all. Because I was doing all these concerts in the United States invited all these people. I know many of the, I've met many of the very famous musicians in their lives, and they've spent time in our houses and in our friends' houses, and we've hung out with them, taken Veena Saraswati to see Philadelphia, and sat with her in buses and joked about all kinds of things. So I've this lot of experiences in music. But what I don't want to write about is I don't want to write just about music. I want to write a book which sort of blends music with science in some way. There's a book called Musicophilia written by Oliver Sacks, which is a really nice book. And if you have a chance, it's sort of it is the role of music in influencing how your brain works. And so I'm very interested in that kind of topic. So maybe in my next book, maybe somewhere in that space. So somewhere between music and science.
We look forward for that book, sir.
Yeah, it'll take several years to write.
No problem.
But we can have conversations about it.
Yes. Oh, there are more questions coming in. How did you approach your family and tell them that you want to make a career in research? As research is very time consuming and not well paid.
Yeah, that's a great question. One of the, again, that's the environment, the inflection point that I talk about, right? The factors that are involved in your exponential growth, your family, your environment plays a big role in your support system, right? So I was fortunate that both my parents and my sisters and we come from a family where everybody values education a lot. I think my father is from Karad. He came to he left high school, he left his college, he left his home at the age of 16 or 17 from Karad and came to Bombay to do his engineering in VJTI, in the 1940s or whenever he came. And then he worked for the railways, and he worked for many years. The reason we were in Lucknow is what Lucknow has the research design standards organization, which is the research division of the railways. So he was a scientist in the research division of the railways. My mother used to teach mathematics. My sister is a physician. She went to AFMC. So we're like surrounded by people who are in the education business. So doing a PhD, although none of them had done their PhD, doing a PhD for them was not something that they supported 100%. Yeah, great question.
So there's a question by Pooja. How did you think of starting journey in research? Yeah,
I think I didn't plan to do research. Maybe I'll tell you the Cancer Research Institute story, because it sort of will tie in a lot of these questions that I'm trying to answer. So Jhunjhunwala से भी the college, Jhunjhunwala ने the job नहीं दिया, right? फिर झक मार के वो filing की job मिल गया, right? And then at some point you get frustrated, and then what happened was I gave a lot of interviews at that time. Whoever would call for me for an interview, I would go and try to get the job. So I had given an interview. Somehow I got, when I went to work in that Ajit India company, I got some confidence in myself that I probably did not have before, because I got the job by myself. It was a job. I had to really work, and I told you I started learning about politics. I started learning about how to deal with other people, and I started learning this. I started living sort of the adult life. You're not a student anymore, and then you have to sort of fend for yourself, right? So then I got this bindaspana, little bit of that. So I went to the. I gave an interview in Hex that time. Hex is today's Novartis. And I think it was medical representative or something. And I'd given that interview, and in an interview, there's a group discussion. And I can't remember the topic of what that group discussion was, but what I distinctly remember, there were like 10 people in the group discussion. And whatever that topic was, all the other 9 people spoke for that particular topic. And for some reason, I said, if everybody is for, मैं नहीं बोल देता हूँ यार. So what happened was, I was the only person who was saying no to whatever that topic was, and all the 9 people were giving arguments of yes. So what had happened was, every time someone spoke yes, I had to speak no, na. So the other people got their chance to speak only 1 in 9 times. I spoke every other time. And I didn't plan it. So they were going to select one candidate. I got selected for the job at Next. And I think that time they were going to give me 1,000 rupees or something. I don't remember what it was. 1,000 rupees. And then I went. Then ab job mil gaya, to koi farak nahi padta hai. So I had to. I was going to start in a couple of months. I was going to go to Delhi to some training. They were going to send me somewhere. And I'd applied for doing my PhD in Cancer Research Institute. And I was not interested. I was not like, although Usha Madam said that I was studious, I was not that studious. Like, I was not really interested in studying. Chalta hai yaar, masti. I was more interested in the masti. And Usha Madam was told I was more interested in that. So what happened was, the day of the interview in Cancer Research Institute, my friend and I, we were going to go picture dekhne jaane wale the. कोई पिक्चर 12 बजे की पिक्चर थी, तो वो परेल से वो जाती है ना, एक बस जाती है 116 बस जाती है वो इसके सामने से, टाटा हॉस्पिटल के सामने से, वी यूज्ड टू लिव इन दादर। तो ऐसे चल पिक्चर जा रहे हैं, मैं इंटरव्यू देके आता हूँ यार, तो बैठ 2 मिनट में अगली बस लेके इंटरव्यू देके मैं, तो आई हैड वोन सम फटा पुराना, not even dressed up properly for the interview, and chappal, I remember I always used to wear these rubber chappal and walk. I don't know why, but always wore these rubber chappal and went for the, कोई shoes नहीं, कुछ नहीं, ऐसे ही चला गया इंटरव्यू के लिए। वहां पर लोग बैठे थे बाहर, to go everybody is in tie and suit and all that. I'm like, I went with the attitude कि अब जॉब तो है मेरा, 1000 rupees का तो जॉब है हेक्स में, right? And that time 1000 rupees were great, right? So, and I went into this room, which is a very it's a like claustrophobic room. It is like one of those rooms that just when that we are going to paint shocking neon pink in Jhunjhunwala College. Chota sa room in which 20 people were sitting in that room. Right. Later on, I learned these 20 people are like the stalwarts of cancer research, like Dr. Gangal and Dr. Gotoskar and Dr. Bisse, and all of these people were sitting there. I didn't know who these people were. They just have people with white hair. That is all I saw, right? And then they started asking me all kinds of questions. Of course, I had studied and I knew my subject really well. At that time, we had learned zoology, animal physiology. So whatever, I can't remember the question that they asked. But one question I remember very clearly. Somebody had asked me this question: "Is tell me something about cervical cancer." कुछ cancer के बारे में कुछ पूछा. Tell me something about cervical cancer. And मेरा तो that time what you would say, खोपड़ी सटक गया था type. I can say that now. Because what I said, अरे यार मेरा वो फ्रेंड रुका हुआ पिक्चर के लिए जा रहा है, तुम लोग फालतू में क्वेश्चन पूछ रहे हैं, मेरा तो जॉब है, मुझे नहीं चाहिए जॉब मुझे। तो मैंने उसको बता दिया कि नहीं, so I had this attitude, right? Like attitude कि that I told them that अगर मुझे पता होता तो कैंसर जैसे क्यों आता है यार, तो ऐसे ही आंसर कर दिया मैंने। So it turned out later on that Dr. Dev asked me that question, and it is the answer that I gave that got me the fellowship. The attitude that I had gave me the fellowship. Of course, it took a long time for me to, control that attitude, to convert it into research environment and all that. And then many very, very good mentors that I had in cancer research really molded me to do research well. Dr. Ruta Mulierkar, Shrikant Mane, a lot of very, very important mentors in my life at that time really molded me. But that first thing, that the way I got the job was like this bindas thing. Ho gaya to ho gaya, nahi hua to nahi hua. Once you get liberated, now then stuff starts happening.
So then at this point, how did you decide on leaving Hex and moving to ACTREC?
Oh, well, then it was no question. I mean, it was very clear to me that PhD to karna hai, PhD to, I really wanted to do PhD. I really wanted to do, and when I saw the institute, it was amazing institution. And then, of course, I talked to Bhagwat sir, I talked to Karmarkar sir. I mean, I must have talked to all my professors in Jhunjhunwala at that time, and everybody highly recommended to do a PhD versus going into a company at that time. Yeah.
So Namrata says, so it was surely a very inspiring morning to begin the month with your talk. So Jaswinder has another question. As an alumni, what advice would you give to your juniors?
क्या ज्ञान देंगे यार, तुम लोग जो अगल बगल में दिखता है वही, you absorb whatever you think is right and take it and run with it. We will constantly give you all kinds of advice, right? There's no one specific, work hard, listen, have a mentor, those, do courageous things, and do all those things, and then I can give you all kinds of advice, and you can read books and all that, but I think a lot of it is a little bit of an attitude. I feel is a like, you should be confident of who you are. I love a statement that I saw in one of the movies. I don't remember, Hindi picture hi hoga koi, उसमें कुछ हिंदी में it might be something ओम शांति ओम टाइप मूवीज में होता है ना, वो कायनात पीछे पड़ जाती है वाली, जब तुमको पता होता है क्या चाहिए ना तो कायनात पीछे पड़ जाती है दिलाने के लिए, राइट? तो लेकिन वो क्या चाहिए वही पता नहीं होता क्या, you don't know what we want, right? So once you know what you want ना, तो वो कायनात पीछे पड़ जाएगी. That is sort of the, you I guess if I had to give advice, try to figure out a methodology of a way that you know what you want, and just like the decision making, whatever you decide that you want na is wrong. Doesn't matter. जो भी तुम decide करो गलत है. Once that, and I'm speaking galat hai a little bit from a joking perspective, it is wrong, but it's not wrong, right? You know that it is not wrong. It is, when you look at it from that perspective, the fear of making a decision goes away. You always say ना, अरे सही decision लिया कि नहीं लिया, हमेशा डर लगता है ना. मैंने लड़के को चूज किया, सही decision किया कि नहीं किया, नहीं किया, गलत ही है, बाद में ही पता चलेगा कि सही है कि नहीं. So that the fear goes away. Okay, if there are more questions, I'm happy to answer these questions. But after some of the questions are finished, I need about 5 minutes to share one more thing about questions itself, and I'm going to share something about questions. But let's see if there are more questions. I love the number of questions that you're asking.
There is one more from Zayed. It's, sir, other than biological sciences, which other fields you would like to do your higher studies?
Yeah. Actually, interestingly, I don't have the patience and the aptitude, I think, to do higher studies in the subject that I really want to study. But my friend has done it. My friend with whom I've started my new company with, his name is Ravi Khare. He's my age. He's also 60, and we've been friends since we were 16. And so the company that we have formed is called Symphony Tech Biologics, and the motto of this, or the philosophy of this company, is doing data analytics, and data analytics in the biological field. And as I can talk much more detail about this, but you can imagine that nowadays data is the new oil, right? I mean, data analysis, which are the biggest companies in the world? They're data companies. Facebook, Apple, Amazon, they manage data. That's how they've become so big, right? So data is the next big thing that we have to analyze. And in biological sciences, there's a lot of data. How to analyze that data and develop machine learning processes to analyze the data systematically is something that we've formed this company for, where our tagline is finding engineering solutions to biological problems. So that's sort of the tagline. So I would have loved to do some mathematics and to learn higher mathematical sciences, but then I haven't had the courage to do that. But my friend Ravi Khare, he has, at the age of 60, just registered in BITS Pilani to do his master's in artificial intelligence. So he just finished 1 year. He says, रात को मैं आज all night मारने का यार exam है कल. So he's definitely doing it, very inspirational. But for me, I feel like there's so much in biology itself that I need to learn. There's so many fields in biology itself that you need to learn. I'd rather focus on the biology and let him focus on the engineering and mathematics. So that space in between is what we are exploring.
Yes, okay. Now there are no more questions. You can share your.
So the thing I was going to share is there were, and I'm so happy that people ask questions, because I actually don't need to show this to you, but I'm going to show it to you anyway. I'm going to show you a process of how to ask questions. So, I analyze everything, and I also analyze how to ask questions. So when you look at data, when you look at this graph, which is a graph between the context and understanding, there are 4 layers. There's data, there's information, there's knowledge and wisdom. I can ask you a lot of questions about define what is data, what is information, what is knowledge. I can ask you to define some of these, but because of time, I'm going to just go through them quickly myself. So data are facts and figures, right? And data generally looks like dots. And there are all kinds of things, but graphically it will look like a dot. When you analyze the data, it becomes information. And when you analyze it, the dots start taking a shape, right? When you interpret the information, it becomes knowledge. Similar kinds of information is knowledge, and I'll tell you how that is the case. You come to Junjunwala College, you study, you get the information of biology, you get the information of mathematics, you get the information of physics, you get the information of chemistry, all similar kinds of information, cumulative. You get the knowledge of the degree of Bachelor of Science. Okay, so similar kinds of knowledge, similar kinds of information cumulatively makes knowledge. Different kinds, the other way. When you apply knowledge, it becomes wisdom, and different kinds of knowledge, when combined, becomes wisdom. And how is that? You have a bachelor's degree, you know how to play the flute, you know how to ask questions, you know how to make decisions, you know how to do public speaking well. Different kinds of knowledge will make you wise. Right? So this is a continuum of how these processes work. And I told you that I'll show you a process of how questions are asked. So what happens is in this process is, in general, this doesn't apply 100%. In general, when you ask questions which start with what, when, where, you will get either data or information. If you ask a question which starts with how, you will get knowledge. And if you ask a question which starts with why, you will always get wisdom. So let's try this. Okay. So let's see. Rachana, I see that you're wearing a blue sari. Are you? Or a chudidar or something? You're wearing a blue,
it's a blue dupatta.
Teal blue dupatta, right? Where did you buy this dupatta?
It has been gifted to me.
Yeah, but by whom?
By my cousin.
By your cousin. How did you get this dupatta?
At a function, she gave it to me.
What function was it?
It was some naming ceremony.
Naming ceremony.
Long back.
Long back, I see. And why are you wearing this dupatta today?
Yeah, it was, I thought it would suit the occasion. It was nice and I liked the color also.
You realize that when I ask you a question which starts with where, it's very easy to answer it because it's a data question. When I ask a question with how, it's a little bit more difficult. But if I ask you a question which starts with why, you have to give me wisdom.
Yeah, correct.
So depending on the nature of the question, you will get data, information, knowledge, or wisdom. You have to know what you're getting, no?
Very true.
You can't just randomly ask questions. So this is a process, not that data or information questions are not important. They're also important. But if you want wisdom, the chances of getting a wisdom question is with why is very, very high. So I'll tell you another very simple thing, right? Just whenever you think of a question, just put why in front of it. Wisdom ho jayega. What is the time? Why is there time?
Correct.
You can't answer the question, why is there time?
Yes.
Right?
Deep.
Anyway, this is a process that I wanted to share with you. When I'm so glad that all the students and all of you ask so many questions. Usually when I do this group session, it's really hard for me to extract people to ask questions. And once I show them the process of how to ask questions, then hundreds of questions start coming. Because now they know the process.
Mainly the why questions will start coming.
Only why questions. Then people ask all kinds of crazy questions. And you can imagine who asked the best questions, right? high school children, even middle school children ask the best questions. We forget how to ask questions as we grow up. But questions is most important to do anything in life. Research karna hai to you should be able to ask good questions. तो क्या research करोगे? Answer to Google दे देगा. But there is no Google site for asking questions. This is one methodology to ask questions. Anyway, this is what I wanted to share. And if there are no more questions, so I think we've spent quite a lot of time. Thank you so much for an amazing opportunity to share my thoughts with you.
Rachna ma'am, I think we'll have the formal thank
Yeah.
you. I know we didn't want to end here.
Rachna would give the formal thanks.
Yes, ma'am. So it is my
But
pleasure.
from my side, I'm overwhelmed at the way, the lucid manner, and some little part of the story that we really did not know. And as you very rightly said, when we do our masters, we really don't know what next. And we all start looking at some job or the other. But everything is a learning process.
Yes.
And you've come a long way, Naren, and I'm very sure there are many more milestones which you'll be achieving. And thank you very much for spending a very, very valuable time. It was very exciting and highly interactive session. So thanks to the Department of Biotechnology for that wonderful website. I'm very sure you'll do a capacity building activity for others to follow suit. And the session now, for a vote of thanks. Thank you, Naren, for being with us today.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, I would formally like to give a vote of thanks to all those who are present here, especially Dr. Narendra Chirmule. Sir, your talk and your stories were so inspiring. Like, we feel that it should not end. We should keep chatting, but of course, there is a time limit, and it must be almost 12 in the night by now for you. So we would like to end this session. I would like to thank you from the bottom of my heart. And it was very inspiring on behalf of all the students and the teachers. I would like to thank you for giving such a nice, it was like a life lesson to us. And so many different points which I myself have noted down and would make it as a part of my learning and implement or inculcate in our day-to-day life. Such useful tips you have given to us. So thanks a lot for that. I would like to thank Dr. Himanshu Davda sir for welcoming today's session. I would like to also thank our director, Dr. Usha Mukundan, and all the faculty members who have attended this session and got inspired by Dr. Chirmule's talk. Dr. Suchita Golwalkar for introducing the Department of Biotechnology. On behalf of all the teachers from Biotech Department, I thank you very much for publishing our website. Okay, we have been working on it since last almost 1 month. And it was very, we're honored to have got it published through your hands. So officially, I would like to conclude this session. Thank you very much. Thank you, students, for your so many inquisitive questions. And I'm sure we would remain in touch with Dr. Chirmule for your further any questions. You can direct it to us. We can get the queries resolved from him through email later.
So we will also be in touch with you with respect to the soft skill that you were talking about.
Sure,
so we'll get connected and we'll see how it can be worked upon.
Yeah, great. All right, hopefully this is a great beginning for a good interaction with my alma mater and interacting with all of you. Thank you so much, Usha, for making this happen.
Thank you.
Okay, sir.
Okay,
and I'll end the meeting now.
Yes, Rachna ma'am. Yeah. Have a good night, sir.
See you on the other side. Bye.